Hey guys, Jeremy here with Simple Little Life. In this video, we're going to make some hanging planter basket hook thingies. Now you can buy these at the store, but the ones that we've found locally, they're kind of made out of thin sheet metal and they're just, I don't know, they've got these gaudy scrolls on them. I just think they don't look very good. So my wife was wondering if I could forge some. And of course, it'd be good practice, a lot of fun. And I'm starting out here with some 1/2 inch square stock. This is just hot rolled steel. And I cut all these pieces to 30 inches. I figured that would be good size with the design that we wanted to go with. So with all the pieces cut, it's time to fire up the forge. Now I decided to work with 4 bars at a time, and that actually worked out really good. What it allowed me to do was to, work one of the pieces of steel until it cooled down, put it in the forge, and then just grab the next one. And it was just pure fluke, but I found that the 4 at a time was just excellent. Like by the time one was cooled down, put it in there, grab the next one. I mean, it didn't work on every one of them for very long, but it was a really good cycle, and it allowed me to just continually be hammering on the steel. I wasn't waiting for any pieces to warm up at all. At the same time, it was very exhausting. These are very, very simple in design, but they were actually a lot of work. Initially, I thought that, I might be able to get this done in 4 or 5 hours, and this ended up taking me the better part of 2 Saturdays. One thing I found when I'm editing this video footage is that being able to see from this kind of an angle what the steel's doing as I'm hitting it, I feel like even just looking at this video footage after the fact, I've learned a lot about, the way the steel moves with different types of hammer blows. You kind of see patterns in the way that I hit things, and I can definitely take what I'm watching here and kind of apply it to the next time that I do some forging work. Because, you do see what the steel's doing when you're looking down from above, but when you get this angle, I found it really, really quite fascinating to see how the steel moves. And I would like to put in this caveat that I am not a blacksmith. I'm not very gifted in this area by any stretch, but projects like this, it doesn't really matter, right? If I screw these up, who cares? Just get some more steel and make a new one. So I really enjoyed this project. I feel like I learned quite a few things. Even just trying to keep these tapers in and keep everything square. I noticed certain ways I'd be moving it, and all of a sudden it almost kind of twists, and you had to fix it and go back to it. So I really, really enjoyed that. Now, one thing I found is that I've switched up to this little mini sledgehammer. This is an Estwing. And I know there's probably going to be a lot of folks saying, oh, you shouldn't be using that hammer. That's not the right hammer. But I really like this. I found it was very comfortable. I like the weight of it. And it just worked for me. So why not just keep on doing it? I do switch to a different hammer when I'm putting in the scrolls at the end. But for doing all the hard hitting, I found this was really good. I could swing it really fast, really hard, but it wasn't too much work that my arms were getting sore. And with there being 12 of these, I ended up doing 3 sets of 4 at a time. So it was a lot of hammering. I was fairly well exhausted by the end of each Saturday making these. And then once I was getting the taper kind of in a little bit more where I wanted, towards the end there, I was really kind of slowing down and just trying to finesse it and keep it a little bit more even. Definitely taking smaller hammer blows there, checking things out. And again, I was probably trying to straighten some of this out, trying to get the square back in line so we didn't have any twisting action going on. Now, when I was doing this, it was about 30 degrees Celsius, which is, I don't know, somewhere between 80 and 90 Fahrenheit, I think. And for me, that is hot. I mean, that was really, really hot. My wife was actually surprised that I kept going all day with these. But you know what? Once you're out there and you're just sweating, like sweat was pouring off my face. It's kind of like whatever. It's kind of fun. Drink lots of water and just, suffer. I really, really enjoyed this. And once I had all the tapers where I wanted, it was time to start putting in the scroll. And you see that I did switch up to that hammer. I tried the other one, but somehow I liked this one a little bit better. This is also the part when you're forging where it's almost a little bit more exciting because you're actually adding a lot of shape and definition. You know, when you're just forging in the tapers, it's kind of slow. You don't see any quick results. It takes a few heats. But once you're at this stage, it's really fun because you're actually starting to give the shape, the final shape of what you want. You can see the steel moving a lot more. And the other thing I was thinking about when I was doing this is that I ended up taking a lot of heats to be able to make these things. And I kept thinking, you hear blacksmiths talk about, on how many heats can you do it. And I think that's one thing that would definitely come with experience, is that you can get a lot more work done per heat. I wasn't focused on that with this. I was just trying to make a product that I wanted at the end. I want to have the overall design come out the way that we had envisioned it. But I'd definitely like to be able to work a little bit more efficient as I get better. And then these final heats, I'm just kind of truing everything up, making sure that hook is in line, just adjusting the curve. I wanted to make sure it was enough that the hangers wouldn't fall off in the wind. But I also just wanted it to be kind of very simple and elegant. Just a nice little hook on there. Now, once I had all the scrolls put in, I went and kind of heated up the part next to that, and that's going to be where I'm going to start to bend my arch. And for bending that arch, what I actually ended up finding was an old disc brake rotor. And it was just about the right diameter that I'd wanted. And just for the way that these fit in my forge, I had to do half of that bend with each heat. So I did the first heat here, I bent half of it, and then I had to kind of put them in the forge in a slightly different orientation to finish up the bend. I actually saved this rotor for use in my hydraulic press. Sometimes you need it for pushing bearings out, and it's funny when you save old parts like this, they come in handy. I mean, you got to kind of organize them so it doesn't just look like a junk pile, which I'm probably guilty of having a junky looking area around my sea can because I've got so many materials that I don't want to get rid of, but those things do come in handy every now and then. And then here you see I could only do 2 at a time in my forge, just trying to get the back part of this curve heated up. So this first one didn't go very smoothly. I wasn't really prepared. The end there, where I'm holding on with the tongs, that was fairly hot, but it wasn't too hot. So what I ended up doing is just grabbing a welding glove. And on the latter ones that I was working on, I actually pulled them right out of the forge with the glove, so I didn't even use the tongs. And just to allow me to just give a good hard push on that edge. I could have used the tongs if the sea can wasn't in the way, but they were actually hitting the sea can, so I needed to kind of get in there just so I could finish up this little bend. There's a few spots where it was a little cooler where it kind of flared out from the rotor a little bit, so I had to kind of smash those back into place to keep a nice even arch. Towards the end, I got much more efficient at bending these. These first ones, I had to tune them up a little bit with the oxyacetylene torch, but towards the end, I was able to do the full bend in 2 heats and not need the torch at all. So once I got all the curves put in there that make up the main portion of that hook, what I want to do is put this other end in, and I'm just going to hammer it kind of flat. Kind of give myself a little wider area to go against the post, and then I'm just going to drill some holes in that end to use the screws that I can mount to the posts on our front porch. And with those heated up, I'm going to start hammering in that flat spot. And this is one of those spots again where it's not overly exciting. I mean, all you're doing is just a bunch of work. Towards the end, I was actually able to get these flats put in just 2 heats, and I think there's a lot of benefit in working in multiples because it's repetition, and you can kind of see what's working, see what's not working, and make adjustments. And towards the end, I was getting actually some pretty nice flat hammer blows, and I was able to hit these things hard. Like I was hitting them almost as hard as I could, and the practice from doing them over and over and over again, you end up getting some fairly nice flat hammer marks, and it actually ended up going pretty good. I think this is an excellent way to learn, is doing multiples of one thing, especially when it's 12 of these brackets, right? I could do one of them and you would make it, it'd be fine, it'd be slow, but when you're doing this many of them, you actually have time to think about the techniques and adjust as you go. I kind of use the horn there to kind of put in a little bit of a radius there. I didn't want it just to start out with some hard hammer blows. I wanted it to kind of have a little bit of a curve transition into that flat spot. And what I'm doing here is I'm actually just texturing the rest of the hooks. Now this is just cold texturing, and I just didn't want solid, even looking bar stock. So I just wanted something to give it some visual interest. And I know there's a lot of people that hate hammer marked stuff. It's cheating and all that stuff. Well, hey, whatever. If you want to build them and you think this is cheating, don't do it this way. But I think it looked better in the finished product to have some little texture on the entire thing instead of just texturing at the end where the scroll was and at the other end where the flat part was. Really kind of worked on breaking the edges, those corners, just so they weren't totally square and sharp. Make it look like it was an actual, worn out piece of steel. I wanted these things to look like they were kind of old. I actually worked on these in between heats of the other hooks while they're waiting to heat up to get their flat part put in. Certainly did a lot of hammer blows for one day, way more than I'm used to. And the next day actually was funny. We went for a bike ride, and my hands were sore. And I was like, why on earth? I never have issues when I'm cycling like this, but it was because of the fact that I'd been hammering for like 8 hours the day before. And I was thinking about possibly drifting holes in, but I thought, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm not set up yet for that stuff. I think getting the heat and then trying to hold it and drift the holes, and then also the fact that I've drifted a few holes before with punches and the hot steel, but if I have a drill press and this is a nice drillable material, I just wasn't interested. It didn't even, I thought about it, I was like, I could drift these in, but I thought, why on earth would I do that? I've got a drill press. What I did is I just eyeballed where I want the screws to be, didn't measure anything, and then I hit it with a center punch there, so I had a nice little hole. Especially on that second one, sometimes it was in the middle of the taper, going up to the full thickness of the stock. And without that center punch there, I think my drill bit would have definitely been drifting a lot. And then I bring these and I give them a little quick countersink so that I've got a nice spot for the screw to recess into so it's not sticking out. So now what I'm going to do is put the finish on, and I'm using, it's double boiled linseed oil. I don't know if that matters or not. It's just what I had. And I'm heating up the metal. And what I want to do is get it really nice and warm. And what I was doing was I was looking at the colors. To get this result that I wanted a nice black color. And so I ended up taking up to about 800 degrees Fahrenheit. And I would just kind of watch the steel as it changed through the different heat cycles. You get your nice, your straw colored around 400 or something like that, and then it kind of turns blue and purple, and then it kind of goes back to almost like a non-colored version. And I think that's around 800 degrees Fahrenheit, maybe 380, 390 Celsius or something like that, but I got these really good and hot, and in this one here, I'm kind of testing it to see the result. I knew it was hot enough when it would actually burn the rag when I was putting it on, so this was a bit of a slow process. It probably took me about 3-4 hours to get all these treated. But the finished product turned out really nice. It's a nice black color, and with the boiled linseed oil and they're hot, when it was up to temperature and I'd put it on, it would almost evaporate and look dry. And I just kept rubbing it on until it looked shiny. And then I let them cool down from there, wiped them down with a dry, clean rag. And it's almost like a glass. It's like a hard plastic coating on there or something. So I think that they're going to be well protected, and I think it should last fairly well. And obviously you can see the final shape. Very, very simple. I just think it's a nice, elegant looking curve. And it actually ends up turning really nice when we put them up on the front porch. So you can see, even with this being a fast forward footage, it took a long time to get this finish on these. I think if I'd had some blackener, just metal blackening agent or something, that would have been a quicker way to go. I didn't have anything like that, and I didn't want to wait for package to be delivered, so I just kept up with this. And now the part that I was waiting for, where I could actually mount these. I set these to be, the hook was about 12 inches from that upper beam, and we kind of laid that out earlier with a basket. My wife held the basket where she wanted it, and then I put the hook where it would be, and we came up with 12 inches. Now, the one thing I have left to do is to paint these screw heads, because these are just, typical framing screws, and they're that galvanized gold color. So I'm going to paint them black so they're not quite so obvious. I'll probably use some nail polish or some modeling paint. And after 2 full days of hard work, this was so rewarding, this part right here. I saw it up there, and I love that black contrast against the white, and I just think they're very elegant. I'm so happy with the way these turned out. And this was a railing that we had actually put up earlier this summer. So in the spring, when the snow melted this year, this deck was looking pretty gross, and that railing we put up took a lot of work. I did that with my boys. They cut all the boards, I put them up, and my wife stained it. And this was one of those projects that we'd wanted done this year, and it feels so good. It just gives us such an incredible outdoor living space that's beautiful and comfortable. You have a newer house, there's so much work, but you take a Saturday here, Saturday there, and just slowly pluck away at it, and eventually you end up with a beautiful result that you can enjoy with your family. We eat a lot of our meals out here. It's just wonderful to enjoy this in the summertime. And here's the finished product. Obviously those screws stand out a bit, but you can see the texturing that I did on there. Kind of looks like it's old rusted steel that had kind of withered away or rotted away a little bit. Really happy with how these turned out. Very simple, very elegant. And as far as a foraging project goes, it's incredibly simple, but a lot of work. Definitely worth it in the end though. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully maybe give you a little idea if you're looking for something, some type of a hanging flower bracket. This was a fun project, and I definitely feel like I learned a lot. Thanks for watching, guys. Cheers.